Hello, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny again. It is still August the 25th, 2025. It is now 1:59 in the afternoon. And once again, I'm kind of uncomfortable making a video because my wife might come home anytime. She left around 11:30 to have lunch with some friends in South Haven. But it's very cold outside, and so they can't walk around South Haven to shop or go anywhere. So after lunch, I expect them just to come home. But I cataloged some more books from was gifted to me by a late friend's wife, who is a retired librarian, and he was a musician, loved books, loved to travel, loved his family. Just a really great guy. And I cataloged some more books in my library thing. And I was going to take him downstairs to show in a future video. And I thought I might as well just show him to give you more of an example of the books that I got from Steve's library. And I won't go into the books, but you'll see that these books are, like I said, they add to other books that I have in my library, other collections, subject matter, photography, letters, biographies, things like that. And some of these books I already had in my library, but I just want to show you that I'm just adding to my collection. For example, I'll give you an example. I have, one of the books I got from Steve was the letters of Paul Bowles, In Touch. These are his letters. Paul Bowles wrote the very famous novel, The Sheltering Skies. And he was also a contemporary with Jack Kerouac and Ginsberg and William Burroughs. And he lived in, I think he lived in, my mind just went blank. He lived in, my mind just went blank. I don't know why I can't remember where he lived. Anyway, Paul Bowles, Steve had this hardback in his library of In Touch. The letters of Paul Bowles' first novel, The Sheltering Sky. He lived in Morocco. That's where he lived, Tangiers, Morocco. So I already have in my collection the writings of Paul Bowles and his letters, and Steve had a hardback. So now I can have a hardback edition along with my paperback edition of Paul Bowles. Another example of the connection I had in my library, one thing Steve had was a lot of the writings of Anthony Burgess, who I collect, Anthony Burgess. And I had already in my library Anthony Burgess, Little Wilson and the Big God being the first part of the autobiography. I had this in my library, but Steve had the second volume in his library, which I didn't have. Anthony Burgess, You've Had Your Time, the second part of the Confessions. I had this, and now I have the complete autobiography of Anthony Burgess. So that's see the connection. Also in Steve's library was a book that was gifted to him by one of his daughters, and it's called Wool Gathering, a little memoir by Patti Smith, the musician, poet, activist. This is her little memoir, and this is a signed edition that was given to Steve and his wife and I showed this to Eileen, and she said no, that I could have it. And I said, you sure? And she said, yeah, it's a signed edition. Apparently, Steve's daughter went to see a poetry reading of Patti Smith there in New York, and or Detroit. I already have in my library Patti Smith's famous book that she won the National Book Award winner, Just Kids, which is a memoir of her time in New York City with the famous photographer Robert Mapplethorpe and their relationship in life there back in the 70s, and that whole music scene, arts scene, Andy Warhol and that whole time period. I also have this book, Patti Smith, America's Punk Rock Rhapsodist by Eric Wendell. So the point is, to add to my Patti Smith collection, I got this from Steve's library. So now I can add that to my Patti Smith collection. Talking about Anthony Burgess, he had a lot of Anthony Burgess in his library. And this is a literary study of Anthony Burgess by A.A. DeVitis. And it's a series, it's like a literary biography or study of Anthony Burgess. So this can go into my Anthony Burgess collection. Also, by Anthony Burgess was this novel, M.F. There's a photo of Anthony Burgess when he was probably not so old as the other photo, but this was first published in. Now Anthony Burgess wrote the Clockwork Orange, which he's famous for, and that's what he's famous for. This was published in 1971, and it is a first edition of this novel by Anthony Burgess. And so I collect Anthony Burgess, and so I have a lot more Anthony Burgess that I got from Steve. So I can add this to my Anthony Burgess collection, his novel, M.F. Another writer I collect, and I had this already, but mine was a paperback edition, and this is I think it's not a first edition, it's a second printing, but it's Donald Barthelme's novel Snow White. And I had an old paperback, and this is a pristine edition, published 1967. So I was really pleased to get I collect Donald Barthelme, his biography I have, and his other writings, but I didn't have, I had an old paperback, now I have a hardback. Also, I collect novels, and I found J.B. Presley's novel, The Good Companions, in Steve's collection. I have not read him, but I collect them. I can't remember why, but I like British writers. This was published in 1929. It's been reprinted many times. I already had in my library another novel by J.P. Presley, Angel Pavement. So now I can add the one I got from Steve into my other one, because I collect his writings. So now I had this one. Now I can add this one, and I'll probably get around to reading it someday. Steve has a daughter who lives in England. She's married, has children, and they would travel to England and visit them. and I found these two books in Steve's library. A guidebook, The Heart of Oxford. I read about Oxford because I'm into British history. There's a bookmark in there. I like reading about British history, Oxford. I read biographies of men who attended Oxford, or, Oxford is just part of British intellectual academic history. So this is a little guidebook. And then also there was the Oxford Book of Oxford, edited by Jan Morrison. And what this is basically a history of Oxford, from what I can gather, or writings by people who attended Oxford, were at Oxford. So I got this from my British history, Oxford. I have a history of Oxford downstairs, so I'll add this to my Oxford collection. Also, I found in Steve's library the selected writings of John Ruskin. I collect John Ruskin. He was a social activist. He was an architect, a painter. He was into. So what this is his selected writings. What I don't have with me, but Steve had John Ruskin's autobiography, which is in another bag over there. But these are his selected writings from modern painters, The Stones of Venice, The Seven Lamps of Architect. I have The Seven Lamps of Architect down in my collection, down in my library, and from his autobiography. I can't pronounce the name of his autobiography, but this is from the Everyman's library. So this will go into my John Ruskin collection. So you see, there's a connection. What I saw in Steve's library, I had in my library other things, and I'm just adding to those other collections. One thing I also, these were not on the bookshelves, but when I first came to their house, Eileen said, do you collect art books? And I said, yeah, I collect art books. And and I'll show you some I got. I collect the photography of the French photographer, painter, Man Ray, and I have other books about Man Ray. He was within the abstract paint, impressionist, abstract, and he was friends with the painter, with the really avant-garde, and he was into photography. Art photography, different things. So this is on Man Ray. This will go into my Man Ray collection. And so then there were books by cartoonists from the New Yorker. As you know, I have a huge New Yorker magazine collection, and I collect books, people who wrote, short story writers, people who were associated with the New Yorker from its beginning back in the 1930s and 40s up until probably the present. But one of the cartoonists was Saul Stanberg, and this is like an anthology of his cartoons. I don't really like the word cartoon. I consider it art. I consider what he did as art, and I really like his art. I have a biography of him down in the lower level. To me, he was a great artist, so I consider his drawings, not cartoons necessarily, but works of art. So this is Saul Steinberg, text by Arnold Rosenberg. I think Rosenberg was on the staff of the New Yorker. I'm not sure about that. Another cartoonist, this is another book on the drawings of Steinberg, the Limerith, which is, and also Steve had in here all these the Limerith is this I'm reading from the flap here. The Limerith is a continuation of Steinberg's autobiography. As in his former books, he is discovering and inventing a great variety of events. Illusion, talks, music, women, cats, dogs, birds, the cube, the crocodile, the museum, Moscow, other Eastern countries, America, motels, baseball, horse racing, bullfights, art, frozen music, words, Geronimi, I can't pronounce the word, heroes, harpies, etc. So anyway, there's this is another of his drawings. You can see his drawings. You've seen if you looked at the New Yorker, you've seen his drawings, his artwork. And so this will go into, it's falling apart, but I really like his artwork. So this goes into the New Yorker collection. This is another cartoonist, Julius Feiffer's America from Eisenhower to Reagan, edited by Stephen Heller. This is also, I think, he was also a cartoonist or drawing in the New Yorker. So this is basically looking at his drawings like an American history. You can look at his drawings or his cartoons, they're political cartoons, from Eisenhower to Reagan. And if you look, I can look through this and I remember these events in American history. So it's kind of like American history through political cartoons. So, see, he has, you can see these cartoons of Reagan. And there's Kennedy, probably the Nixon and Kennedy debates during that presidential election. So for me, it's political cartoons, political history, American political history. And I got this from Steve's library. And then this is, I like photography, and this is American history. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but it's called American Greats. And I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's like looking at America, culture, at all aspects of American culture. And I'm not really sure, I should look online, but like it has maybe major events in American history. I'm not sure, like you have a photographer, there's a photo of the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. And I don't know, I like the photography in the book. And it looks just about America. Here is the just different things. The Smithsonian Institute. I don't know. It just looked interesting, and so I grabbed it. American Greats. And then I found, I collect books on Byzantine art and Byzantine history. And this is on the Hagia Sophia, which is the sacred site of the Eastern Orthodoxy. there in Istanbul or Constantinople. It's like, it has the Byzantine mosaics. It's about the history of Byzantine and of that great sacred center. I don't know if I have find a photo of it, but I collect books on Byzantine. See, there's a let me see things like this. See, this was in Steve's library. Oh, I collect. See, there's a picture of it. So in Turkey. So I got this for that. I have other books on Byzantine art. I have them over there. And then this is the last book I'll show. It's Artists and Empire. It's on British colonialism and looking at it from its art. Yeah, it's over the past 30 years, our ideas about the cultures of empire have been transformed. Contemporary reflections by writers and artists are widely published and displayed in museums have witnessed a growing number of expositions devoted to the aspect of the rich and varied visual culture that emerged in places under British governance, from Americas and Africa to India and Australasia until now. However, there has been no wide-ranging presentation of the great breadth of the objects made across the British Empire. Here, leading scholars focus on how these artworks tells the vivid history of life under British rule, colonialism, and survey that range from 16th century colonialism through the projection of Britain's imperial might in the late 19th century and its decline in the post-war era, exploring how artists have represented and critiqued the diverse places and people and events that constituted the empire. This is the visual book on the subject of the broad contemporary interests. So it has all these photos of artwork during the British colonialism, imperialism. Just a very interesting book. I collect British history, the British Empire. So that's why I picked this up. It's the kind of book you can sit down, you put it on your coffee table and you look through it. It has very interesting text. So I got this from Steve's library, a very nice book. Pristine condition. Interesting, very interesting book. So I got that. So these are the kind of books that I got from Steve's library. Now, I have a lot more, but I will show them over a period of time. I just thought since I got time here, and my wife's not here yet, I haven't seen her busting in, so I just thought I'd show you these books before I take them downstairs. Now I got to remember that I've shown them in a video, so I got to put them in a box separate from the other books, so I don't show you the same books over and over again. Somebody wanted to see my coffee table books. I have a lot of art books, and I really like the New Yorker books, especially I like the art of Steinberg. So yeah, it's been 24 minutes. I thought I'd make a video. I've been writing in my diary, making videos, and I haven't really gone anywhere today. It's too cold to go anywhere. A couple of weeks ago it was so hot you didn't want to go outside, and now it's too cold you don't want to go anywhere. So it's 2:24 in the afternoon. I'll close. I'll download this video so you can see more of what I was graciously given by Eileen from her late husband's library. Yeah, he was primarily into music, but he was always reading, always thinking, always read the New York Times, did the New York Times crossword puzzle. He was a very interesting and husband and father and friend, musician, thinker. Anyway, I'll sign off and I'll download this video and I'll show some more books in the future. May the Lord bless. Until next time, bye.